all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by my fellow husky, hairy, huggable homos and friends to review films either current or classic. And this week we are definitely pulling a film from the current category. We are going to be reviewing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The multiverse has gotten a lot of love on this show lately. It'll be interesting to kind of talk about this film. I don't know if Everything Anywhere All at Once will come up, but we'll definitely be talking about a lot of multiversal fun. Sorry, I was distracted by the guys doing weird hand motions, so I lost my train of thought there for a second. But I admire your guys's dedication to the magical, machinations of Doctor Strange. Let me introduce you to my co-host. Jim Pugliafico is on the show. Hey, babe.
Hey, babe. Thanks for the introduction, and I'm happy to be here and talking about this magical movie with you. And we'll get into hand motions and a lot of other stuff, I'm sure. So, yeah, let's talk about the latest Marvel film.
All right, excellent. Well, glad to have you on board for that, sweetheart. Will Lindis is also here. Welcome, Will.
Hey, no, this is going to be a fun one. It's been a busy year for multiversal things. It'll be fun to see how we will all weigh in on this particular iteration of this trope.
Indeed. Well, welcome, Will. Glad to have you here for this convo. We've also got a bunch of people who are hanging out with us. They're in the live chat right now. Hammy says, "You guys are magical." Oh, Hammy, you know just what to say. Welcome, Hammy. Glad to have you with us. Simon and Ben are here. Hey, guys.
Oh, hey,
welcome.
guys.
Glad to have you with us.
Down under.
Indeed. Ben is waving at us from down under.
Mm-hmm.
Down under what?
Hey, guys.
Question.
Hi. Hi.
Glad to have all of you folks with us in the live chat. Don't be afraid to say hello. Let us know your thoughts on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as we get our conversation going. If you're unfamiliar with the format of our show, maybe you're new. We have new listeners sometimes. That's the thing. Welcome. Or maybe it's just been a bit since you've tuned in. But Doctor Strange really got you to come here. We want to make sure you know that we're going to be talking about this movie, spoiler-free, for just a little bit. Just a little bit. So if you've seen the movie, you want all the spoilers, hang in there with us for about 10 minutes. And then we'll get to that ooey gooey, great, creamy, spoiler-centric conversation. I don't know where I'm going with this. But if you haven't seen Doctor Strange yet, and you're like, for some reason I'm on the fence, but I want to know what the movie bears think, feel free to hang out with us. We will give you fair warning before we open things up to spoilers. We don't want to ruin your experience. So, all of that said, Jim, Will, are you guys ready to just dive right into this multiversal movie?
Woo! Indeed. Let's go.
All right.
Let's go.
Then whip up a portal, get out that sling ring, do the thing, because here we go. Our review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Everybody make portal noises. There we go.
This sounds like we're making like laundry noises.
I choose to believe it sounds like a sling ring portal. We've brought you all with us into this segment of the show. Our review of the new Doctor Strange is officially happening right now. Jim, if you don't mind, do us a favor. Give us a brief setup, because I think everybody pretty much knows what the fuck this movie is. But set it up for us and let us know your initial thoughts. What did you think?
So here we have another Marvel summer or late spring blockbuster. I think this is the second in the Doctor Strange movies. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, the second, Marvel movie focused specifically on Doctor Strange. This one's called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We're going to find out how mad this thing really is. I want to walk that non-spoiler line, at least initially, because there could be a lot of spoilers in here, even though I mean, I think everybody in the world probably ran out this last weekend and saw it, at least according to my Facebook and Twitter feeds. So many people, checking in at theaters watching this thing. So, but yeah, I'll read the IMDb non-spoilery synopsis. Here we go. Dr. Stephen Strange casts a forbidden spell that opens the doorway to the multiverse, including alternate versions of himself, whose threat to humanity is too great for the combined forces of Strange, Wong, and Wanda Maximoff. So there we have it. That's the setup for the film. I hope there's no spoilers in there. I don't think there are. Yeah, this one stars, of course, Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange, Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff, who some of us may have seen in the Wanda. What's the name of that show? WandaVision show. This one also has Chiwetel Ejiofor, Benedict Wong, of course, who we saw, in the previous Doctor Strange movie. Rachel McAdams. Okay, and I'm going to mess this name up totally, I'm sure. Will, if you've got a pronunciation, I'll be happy to have it. But it's Xochitl Gomez is in this movie as America Chavez. But yeah, so a fine cast there. We're all comfortable with, Benedict as Dr. Stephen Strange. This movie's, great. I mean, it's I think it's a fine addition to or a fine follow-up to Doctor Strange, and also ties together some of the other properties, right? Like WandaVision we talked about, maybe some others, but I'll save that, we'll save that a little bit for spoilers. But I think it heavily pulls off of the WandaVision show. I'll just say that for its plot line. I really, I enjoyed a lot of this movie. It was really good. I think it was well done, well put together, well acted. Special effects from wall to wall, as you might expect from one of these Marvel action movies. This one's directed by Sam Raimi, who, we know from, all the Spider-Man movies, has directed all the Spider-Man movies, directed Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. So we've got some stuff there. And he directed the fantastic film that no one talks about anymore, Oz the Great and Powerful. I mean, you've got to remember that film if you're going to see this one. But yeah, so he's got a lot of good films under his belt. He has a certain sensibility that I think comes across in this film. We'll talk about that more. He's got a great kind of horror creepiness vibe that he brings into this universe. And I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think, benefits from something done a little bit different, right? And I think he brings that to this film. And I think that's a feather in its cap. And I think the movie benefits from that quite a bit. Yeah, I liked it. I think it's worth seeing. I think it's worth seeing on the big screen. Like I said, it's a special effects extravaganza. There's a lot going on in this film, especially in the third act. I think it gets super busy, and it's between the Easter eggs that it throws in, the plot points that it does, the left turns that it tries to take, given the multiverse, and trying to make it as multiversey as it can be. I think it may have left me behind a little bit in some spots, but I think the movie is worth watching. Yeah, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think it's a thumbs up for me.
All right, excellent, babe. Thanks so much for laying out your initial thoughts. Will, how about for you? Was this a win or was this a whiff?
Yeah, ultimately this was a win. I mean, I think that it's this is an odd movie, even by MCU standards, in that I think compared to a lot of them, this probably has the messiest script. In that there are a lot more things that it has going on compared to a lot of other films, which are more, point A to point B with maybe a point Z zag somewhere along the way. This one, by design, had to go more places. But I think that Sam Raimi is the type of guy who can turn messy into a blessing and not a curse. I mean, if you think about some of his best films, they aren't necessarily known for being these like lean, mean narrative machines. They're known for like the amount of like spaghetti that gets thrown at the wall and seeing what sticks. And we get a little bit of that here. I mean, this is still an MCU film, but you do see Sam Raimi's thumbprints, his bloody, greasy thumbprints all over the film here. There are some spots in here that are going to probably disturb some children. And that's not something that you would normally get from an MCU film. I also think that this one here is probably the closest that we've had to an MCU horror film so far, just in the way that it presents its main antagonistic force and the way that antagonistic force works against Doctor Strange and America Chavez through the course of this film. Benedict Cumberbatch is always one of those guys who I'm usually not super in love with him as an actor, although I never like dislike him as an actor. I think he does a good job as Doctor Strange. He looks the part. I think he feels the part. I think all that's really good. He goes with the weirdness here. Benedict Wong, I love seeing. He doesn't have a ton to do here, but the stuff that he does have, I enjoy it. Elizabeth Olsen is just, I mean, she is a delight, and I think she's a true one of the true strengths of sort of phase 2 on of the MCU has been what she's done with the Wanda Maximoff character. And yeah, Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez. She is a character who has only been in the MCU, or I'm sorry, in the Marvel comics for like 11 years now. You know, she's, you know, which sounds like a long time, but you know, this, you know, in the grand scheme of comic book history, she, you know, she's brand new, although she's been in some pretty prominent roles. And what she does in the comics, while not exactly translated for the movie, they took the spirit of what she does, her powers and all of that, and they wove it very cleanly into the kind of what the MCU is doing here. So I appreciate that. I think it was inspired to use her the way that they did here. I had a fun time with this one. Is it the best multiversal story that's come out this year? No. Does that matter? No. We're allowed to see multiple things that have similar overlap, and we're allowed to both like them or dislike both of them, or like or dislike one of them. But you know, we don't have to choose just one multiversal thing. I'm not either. I'm not going to here. I enjoyed this. I had fun with it, and you know, if you're a fan of the MCU, I'd say you'd probably enjoy it too. I'd give it a recommend.
All right, excellent. Well, Will, thank you for letting us know kind of what you thought about the movie as well. For me, this is a like, not a love. I was entertained by this movie. I had fun with it, but I don't know that I really came away like, oh my God, I have to see that again, or oh my gosh, that was one of the best Marvel films I ever saw. Even with the multiverse stuff aside, and I'm going to go on record, guys, because I know we had some tenseness in our Everything Everywhere All at Once discussion because I was kind of the downer of the group on that movie. But I liked that movie better than Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness in terms of its like multiversal stuff. You're absolutely right, Will. It isn't a competition necessarily. We don't have to like just one. But I felt like that film did a lot cooler things, which is saying something, you know, against a Marvel movie that has the whole multiverse to play with
and all that budget,
superheroes and budget and superpowers. And yeah. But I mean, I did like it. It was interesting to see some of the different, you know, universes that exist out there. They did some fun things that we'll talk about in spoilers we can't talk about here with some of the multiversal shenanigans. But at the end of the day, this is a Doctor Strange movie that I felt like was kind of lacking some Doctor Strange for me. I don't know that I know anything more about this character than I did after Doctor Strange 1. I don't feel closer to this character than I did after the first movie or his appearance in the Avengers movies. I was glad he was there. It was interesting to see some of the things that he was doing. But for an adventure movie where he's paired up with America and all this stuff is going down, I don't know. I think the busyness really detracted from kind of the core emotional beat of the story for me. It was a lot. There's so much packed in. And I think those things are great. Visually, there's a lot here that's happening. It's really exciting to like be looking from area of screen to area of the screen, like, because you don't want to miss an Easter egg or anything that's going on. But in a lot of ways, this just feels like, I don't know, standing at a waterfall trying to get a drink and just kind of almost getting drowned in a way. That doesn't make it a bad movie. It just, for me personally, I don't know. I think I would have appreciated a smaller, more intimate story. Maybe, I don't know, less people in this film, less things it's trying to do. One complaint that I have about this film, and it's interesting, we were at an event over the weekend, and a lot of people were coming to this event and didn't have plans to see the movie. We made a plan with a group of friends to go see it. We got a chance to do that, and we're hanging out with people. We're in the pool. Everyone's talking about the film, and they're like, do I have to see WandaVision in order to see this movie? Because a lot of people have apparently not seen WandaVision, and they're asking us because we've seen the movie. And I was like, yes, absolutely, you have to see WandaVision to understand what the fuck is going on.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, well, I guess I won't be seeing the movie, anytime soon because I need 10 hours to digest WandaVision. So I would just say this is a recommend for me. But if you want to see this movie and you have not yet seen WandaVision, do yourself a favor and wait. Watch WandaVision first. As divisive as that is, we had issues with it. The first couple episodes were like, what the fuck are we watching? And we almost didn't go back to it. But then episode 3, everything kind of started clicking. So get to episode 3 of WandaVision, decide if it's for you, finish that series, and then come back and watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's my suggestion, just me. But I want to throw this out there to Jim and Will just real quick. Would you agree that you need to see WandaVision first, or do you think her story is standalone enough that you don't need that?
I think you might miss a lot of the emotional core of this film, because the whole thrust of this film revolves around the plot of WandaVision and what her character's motivation is. And I won't spoil it here, but it's all right there. I mean, this movie really just goes right back to that well. So if you don't understand those relationships and her motivations, which I don't think this movie like gives us a full like tutorial on those motivations necessarily, I think you might miss a little bit of that. So I think this movie definitely benefits from having seen the WandaVision, which is odd, right? Because I don't remember a Marvel film or a film this, a Marvel film that goes back to one of its like TV series to draw the main plot thrust of a film. But maybe it has happened.
Jim, here's the reason for that. There's the first MCU television show is WandaVision. Anything else that's happened is not part of this universe. So anything else wouldn't get pulled in. So yeah, that's WandaVision was sort of the kickoff of the phase of the television.
I
stuff.
gotcha. So we could probably expect like things like Moon Knight and stuff to tie in maybe heavily to future Marvel films, I would say. I mean, if they're going to follow that pattern and kind of weave this whole tapestry of films and TV series together, I think they're just trying to kind of double down and promote their big, the big picture.
So, they're telling their story through different media, and I think the truth of the matter is that, I mean, unfortunately, when you are, I lost count of how many films deep you are into this franchise, plus the television properties. Like, there are going to be difficulties with jumping on points. I mean, and that's true of a lot of franchises that go this deep in the paint. We had a conversation at the end of like last episode about about both Doctor Who, and I know we've talked a little bit about Star Trek too, both of which have such a long running history that if you haven't caught up with certain things, it can feel like, well, shit, do I dive in now or do I just wait? So I would say do watch WandaVision first. I think that what you really need to know going into this one is kind of knowing the storyline that happens, who Doctor Strange is, because he's the titular character. You need to know about the major stuff that happened at the end of Endgame. You need to know about the impact of that on the Wanda Maximoff character, which we get to see play out through the WandaVision show, which to go back to your original thing, I thought it was excellent start to finish. So I would recommend watching it on the virtue of it's a damn good show. And I would also recommend, and Chad is saying this as well, you don't need to do this before watching this as much as WandaVision, but dipping your toes into the What If series as well will give you a little bit more context about sort of how some of these multiversal things can potentially play out. It's not as direct, it's not like a one-to-one, like you have to watch it to understand the things that are happening, as much as it does sort of like inform your viewing experience in certain spots. But
So maybe
WandaVision, definitely.
So maybe that's the missing piece that would make me go from really liking this movie to loving this. If I went and saw the What If, is it What If? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, What If? But I would say I don't think that. I think that stuff really only comes into play. And when we talk about spoilers, we'll talk about that. But the WandaVision stuff is the more important part.
Right. So a couple things from chat here as well. Just we have a bunch of people hanging out, and chat is going quickly, but we'll kind of grab some of these. Daniel Jensen, hey Daniel, he says, which movie was better to you, Spider-Man No Way Home or Multiverse of Madness? Real quick. Ooh. We don't need why, just tell us which one.
Multiverse.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Also Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah. So there you go, Daniel Jensen. You got our votes.
Maybe I don't think the difference is vast. I think they're kind of in the same.
I agree.
Yeah.
One was slightly better than the other.
Yeah. But I mean, you could probably, talk about that for an hour and a half alone out of that one question. Simon, the lovely Simon, says, previously the TV series just referenced the movies, not the other way around, which is what's happening now. Right. Is that weird for you guys to think that you have to watch a 7-hour or more series in order to understand what's happening in a movie?
No, I mean, when I went to go see, and granted, maybe it's a slightly different animal, but when I went to go see the Day of the Doctor theatrical experience in Doctor Who, like I needed to have watched not the entire history of Doctor Who, but at least the most recent season to understand that experience. When we're talking about these enclosed narratives, the fact that they're pushing them all to Disney Plus, that's sort of like where these films are living after their theatrical experience. I mean, yeah, it's the vastness of the universe of this film universe does make it hard to kind of dip in midstream, but I think you're going to get that regardless of, people were saying that like 10 movies in, do I have to watch 9 movies to watch this 10th movie? So I think that's been something, I mean, we've been talking about on this show for honestly the last decade, right?
Yeah. And it was a joke going around. It was a meme or a joke going around on Twitter. People saying you need to watch these 4 things in order to understand. And they were like weirdly disparate things, like the piano and Brokeback Mountain and blah blah blah. You need to watch these to understand. It was just kind of funny the way it unfolded on Twitter.
Well, as D Geek Will, we love you, D Geek Will, welcome, says, there are 28 movies, he corrected himself, and 6 Disney Plus series as of Multiverse of Madness. That is a lot of content, and I think Marvel has done a pretty good job of giving you onboarding ramps, right? Yeah. Jim's taking off his pants.
Yeah, I'm like watching, like what's Jim doing over there?
You can't see that. Those were just hand gestures.
Oh, okay. Sure. You're creating some magic under the frame of the camera, aren't you?
Pants off time. I think it's past 7 o'clock here. So yeah.
You know what else it's past time for? I think spoilers, because that's the meat and potatoes. I think people are here to listen, maybe to some of our thoughts around, but hopefully share some of theirs in the live chat. Jim, Will, how do you feel about just getting to it?
Yeah.
Indeed. Hit it.
All right. Spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's in the multiverse, not and the multiverse. That's a very important point, ladies, gentlemen, people. So here we go. Our discussion, filled with spoilers, resplendent with all of the plot points you could possibly want, is in fact, actually happening right now. If you haven't seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and you don't want to be spoiled, now's your time to step away. If you are listening to the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, skip ahead using the time index to plugs. You don't want to miss those. And then come on back once you've seen the movie for the rest of the discussion. If you are listening live, step away for 24 minutes and 22 seconds. Come on back for plugs. All that said, I'm done rambling. Spoilers are officially fair game. And Simon Tolhurst has a comment in the chat. He says, I must admit, I feel it's on the level of, do you need to have watched all the original Star Trek series to watch Wrath of Khan? I feel like the backstory elements are explained quickly enough in both cases that you don't need to watch the previous stuff. Would you guys agree with that here? I mean, barring WandaVision, which we already said you very much need to watch, do the previous, 27 films or whatever the fuck it is need to have been seen in order to understand this movie?
No, go ahead, Jim.
I don't know if I fully agree with Simon, but I understand, I think, the point he's trying to make. But in this case, the whole original Star Trek series was not about Khan, right? It was not about, it was only a flash in maybe 1 or 2 episodes, right? Whereas in this case, we have a whole fucking 8-hour series that's devoted to Wanda and her motivations that are on center stage in this film. So I think it's a little bit different in terms of magnitude, but I do get the idea.
I think that, none of these is a one-to-one comparison either, too, right? Like, I think that when you look at all of the Marvel films up until now, like, you don't need to have watched all of them here, because the beginning of this film, I think, does set up who Doctor Strange is. It sets up his relationship with Wong. It sets up, if you didn't remember the character that Rachel McAdams played in the first one, you get plenty of that through kind of like the wedding scene that we have. If you didn't remember him clashing with Mordo, the Chiweedle Ejiofor, you at least get sort of like, okay, there's some tension between these two. You understand all of that. So I think they set up everything here with context clues, except for the Wanda stuff. Although, to be fair, they give us enough monologuing to really get into that. Like, I feel like in some ways you could sit down and watch this and understand the core of everything that's happening without getting all of that. I think the rest of it just really paints the picture. It paints in the motivations, like very clearly. I mean, I think of using the Star Trek analogy. I think it would probably be more like, for me, Star Trek. What was the one with the Borg?
First Contact.
Okay. I know the Borg existed before First Contact. I know that was a big part of everything. I watched that movie and I had no idea what the fuck these robot people were and why they were important when I watched it the first time.
Yep.
I've still never seen a Borg episode of Star Trek. It's not my thing, and that's okay, But that one was one where I felt like I was missing out on one of the major puzzle pieces. That, I mean, granted, you learn about it from the film, but I did feel like I was missing a little bit going into it.
Well, I have 3 words for you.
Resistance
is futile.
God, that run. Me carving out the runtime to catch up on the Star Trek I would need just to feel like I could watch any of the new shows. That feels futile.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the new shows are, except for Picard, are all brand new properties. So you don't have to watch anything to watch and enjoy them, Will. But yeah, just as D Geek Will says here in the chat, you really only need to watch the first Doctor Strange, Avengers Endgame, and maybe No Way Home in order to kind of understand what's going on here. So,
and not WandaVision?
Well, he mentioned WandaVision as well. I just meant in addition to what we had
talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would fully agree. That's plenty.
Yeah. So let's talk about how What If kind of ties in here. I have not seen What If, but I've done a little bit of research. So the What If stuff really only comes into play when they're on Earth. What is it, 838 or 636 or something? When the Illuminati are part of what's going on. This group of like heroes who have been charged with making these big cosmic decisions for the protection of Earth. And we got some goodness in our theater. At least there were a lot of claps and cheers during this scene, we had, speaking of Star Trek, Patrick Stewart himself show up as Professor X. And Ben, thank you so much for calling this out, because I squealed like crazy when this happened. The X-Men 90s callback theme, Daniel Jensen mentioned it as well, was awesome. I'm glad that you folks bring that up. As I heard that little do-do-do-do-do-do, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah,
He's
people
not
went
the only
crazy.
Star Trek character in that scene either.
No, he's not. Who's the other one, Will?
Anson Mount, who plays Pike in the new
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. Yeah. So the What If series is a series of animated stories that sort of tell alternate reality, like one-shot stories. The last episode of it sort of wove all of them together into like, let's put them all together. But it's sort of like each one is fairly self-contained. What if T'Challa was taken to space instead of Peter Quill to become Star-Lord? And then it just plays out an episode of like, well, what would happen there, if that happened? And that was a badass episode, by the way. One of the last things that Chadwick Boseman did as well, doing the voice work on that. So absolutely should check it out. But one of the episodes in there was basically, what if, oh my gosh, what is her name? Peggy Carter. What if Peggy Carter had been given the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers? And so she becomes the Captain America of one of the episodes, which we see here. And that's why I was sort of like saying, like, you kind of, what if is nice to see, but you don't really need it, because you don't need to see that episode to be able to see her show up there and go like, okay, it's Peggy Carter's Captain America. Right. It's fun to reference that, but you see her on screen, you can immediately go like, okay, cool.
Although but you might be like, why is Captain America wearing a Union Jack, and has an American shield? But like beyond that, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And the same with, everyone else there was there for one of two reasons. In the comics, the Inhumans, guys, I'm getting to them. The Illuminati is a group of, it's like a secret society of some of the most important people in the Marvel universe. Your Mr. Fantastic, Black Bolt, Charles Xavier, Namor doesn't show up in here, but so it's just like a bunch of important people who make a lot of decisions for Earth behind the scenes in secret. They wanted to play that out here. You didn't need to know that. They show all of that in the movie. So the Illuminati is all of these people. And we got to see every single one of them was a reference to something. Peggy Carter shows up from the first Avenger, and then from the What If, we get to see, of course, Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier slide in. That was awesome. We saw Anson Mount as Black Bolt. That's the role he played in the nobody watched it, and so it's been written out of the canon Inhuman series. He played Black Bolt in that. We got to see who else? We got to
Krasinski.
John Krasinski as Reed Richards, who's been fan cast for ever as that. And then we got to see I cannot remember the actress's name. I'm looking it up. Lashana Lynch. She played Maria Rambeau in the Captain Marvel movie and went to space with Brie Larson. She was the fellow pilot with Brie Larson in the Captain Marvel movie, and the mother of the Monica Rambeau, who's the new Miss Marvel. So I like that all of those references, they tied different things together just so that we could see them, we're in spoilers, get fucking killed right away.
Yeah, to me, that was maybe, it's unfortunate, I think, just for me, that, when the Illuminati showed up in that, I think just one scene or a couple scenes, the theater went crazy, because I think a lot of people around me kind of watched What If, were deeper into Marvel lore than I am, right? So they instantly kind of, I knew Dr. Xavier for sure, but I don't think I really knew, I think I knew the Krasinski character a little bit, right? But I didn't really know, first of all, who all of them were and what the fuck they were there for, because I don't think it's really, unless I missed it, I don't think it's really super explained in this movie. They just kind of show up, say their shit, and then the action starts and they all die or something, right? So,
well, they have Doctor Strange in chains, and Chiwetel Ejiofor's character is leading him to judgment with Ultron robots marching at his side.
Yeah,
and he explains on the way that the Illuminati are gonna like, pass judgment on him and decide what to do and da 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 da. So, I mean, it is explained in the dialogue, but if you were like watching what was going on the screen
as
or
far as
something,
who
maybe
they are,
Yeah.
or just
Yeah.
that they're the
Yeah.
Illuminati. Okay.
Yeah, I mean they say they're the Illuminati, but like they mention them in terms of like we learn about through the course of that scene and a scene later on, we learn about the decisions that they've had to make to stop incursions, which are when people from two different multiverses come together, and that's how they came together, and they got that way because the original Doctor Strange was doing the dream walking, which he did because of all that. So yeah, they explain through all of the like the little exposition drops, all of that. But I think that was less important ultimately, because then, I think if you just walked into this and said, this is, even if you don't know the characters, this is a ruling council of these like superhero people who, we're in spoilers, Wanda absolutely destroys, showing us just what she's capable of when she is like, completely off her, off. Yeah. Cause we've seen what happens in WandaVision. We know what she's capable of in sort of like the subconscious space. But what we haven't seen is what she was willing to do if she decides to just let all of that erode, any of that morality she has since, and just kind of go, I've got to drill in on my goal. That's what we got to see here. She's been chasing around the characters, and we knew that she was a threat up until now, but this is the scene where we got to really see it. We got to see a bunch of superheroes get killed in an MCU movie, and that's something we don't get to see a lot of.
Right.
Thank you, Sam Raimi.
I mean, she straight up fucking just kills people. Big heroes, small heroes, unnamed magic people who are creating shields. I mean, she just fucking slaughters everybody. And we're in spoilers. We can talk about this. So at the end of the film, they decide to give her what she wants, right? They basically send her back to the kids. The original Wanda
Timmy and
in
Billy,
that universe,
whatever the fuck it is.
yeah. The original Wanda is there. She's trying to protect her kids. Wanda gets to see sort of her dark reflection, realizes what a monster she's been, right? Here's my question. And actually, I want to throw this out because we have a lot of people with us in the live stream right now. I'd love to hear your opinions as well. But Jim, is Wanda redeemable at this point? She had the Darkhold. She murdered all these people. She incurred into other universes for her own personal gain. She's done a lot, y'all. Is she redeemable as a hero?
Redeemable? I think anybody is pretty much redeemable. But redeemed in this movie, I don't think so. At least not fully. But I think, I think with more work, I don't know if this is the last we're going to see of her or not. I don't know. Is there a Scarlet Witch movie for all? I have no idea. But like I said, I think any character is redeemable, including her. I think there's enough there to kind of build a redemption story around her.
All right, Will, what do you think?
I mean, one of the things that I've really appreciated about sort of, I don't know, the last wave of villains in the MCU, we've talked about this before, is that the MCU, even for the movies that I've absolutely enjoyed and loved through the years, early on had a villain problem, right? And that like it had a couple of really notable villains, but then it had a couple of others who were, less than the heroes, at least in terms of narrative weight. And I think that we've seen a counter swing to that. I would argue that probably the lead character of Infinity War was not one of the heroes. It was Thanos, who was for being a guy who wants to snap his finger and destroy half of all life in the universe. He wants
to save the Earth.
He's a complex character who's obviously doing the wrong thing, but at least from the way that we present it within the story, you understand his motivations, you understand him as a three-dimensional being and not just like a mustache twirler. And that's what I love so much about seeing Scarlet Witch here. We get to see a villain who was didn't just start off as a villain. We got to see a character who was pushed and pulled and warped through events outside of her control into becoming the villain that she became. And that made it really relatable what she was going through. To answer your question about is she redeemable? She's not redeemed at the end of this story. She definitely recognizes some things, but she's not redeemed. And I think that it would take a substantial narrative swing to sort of like bring her back into the good graces. These are comic book movies. That happens. People make that good guy to bad guy swing as part of the narrative fun of it, but you need to have something kind of big for it. I don't know what that would be here, but I do
only in two universes can that happen.
Yeah,
comic book universe and wrestling, professional wrestling universe.
I was about to say it's 100% like face heel turn, right? But so I think that it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work, but I would love to see it happen because I do think that Elizabeth Olsen is one of the highlights of the MCU. I think she's just so incredible, and I love anything that she's been in so far. So I want more Wanda. I just want it to be. I want them to be judicious when they do it again, so that they can really tell that story well.
So some comments from the chat here as well to add on to your guys' thoughts. Adrian Charlie from the Green Screen to Death podcast. Adrian, hey, good to see you. Says, has anyone tried telling Wanda to calm down?
Calm the fuck down, Wanda. Come on. Come
Maybe that would have helped.
Maybe that would help. Let's hug it out.
Hammy says Darth Vader did some heinous shit and he was redeemed. So maybe why not Wanda? And then Ben says, honestly, for me, Wanda being the villain so early in the piece was a little disappointing. A build-up would have been nice. I think Wanda was done dirty, to be honest.
Well, here's the thing. WandaVision wasn't my favorite Marvel property, but from what I remember about it, didn't she create that whole scenario that she was in?
Yes.
Just kind of a very self-centered character, right? She was.
Yep.
Unless there was some altruistic reason, I think it was just kind of she just wanted to have that, right? So I don't know if her, I don't know if maybe she doesn't deserve redemption. I mean, she created this thing that she, you create your bed and you sleep in it, right? I don't know.
Speaking of beds she created, she brought the whole Temple of the Scarlet Witch down on herself. I don't for a minute believe that she's dead because of the immense power that she has. So maybe she will show up in something else and we'll get some redemption for her. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, I think Elizabeth Olsen's a real bright spot in the MCU, and I really hope that we get more Scarlet Witch.
And Brad, that's the first rule of comic books too. Unless you see the bleeding body, they can always come back and just be presumed dead. And even if you see the bleeding body, sometimes still they can come back.
Especially in the multiverse, right? Can a character die in one multiverse and live in another?
Well, hell, I can give you.
Why not?
For the longest time, the rules were, the dead stay dead except for Bucky Barnes. And now, and the comics changed that, sorry, the dead don't stay dead except for Bucky Barnes. Bucky came back and he's the Winter Soldier. Like that was like a big, that broke one of the cardinal rules of comics. Bucky stays dead. Gwen Stacy stays dead, unless you want to use a version of her for Spider-Verse and, kind of like the side things. So comic books are all about comic books are, and I love comic books. They're soap operas. Operas. Simon says in chat, I forgot about one. Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben stays dead. He's the other one that stays dead with Bucky. But Bucky's back. So never say never on Uncle Ben. Hell, Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, infamously killed in an alleyway. I don't know if you guys have seen that in any movies before.
Wait, were there falling pearls? My memory just barely registers.
Yep. And don't you say her name, Martha. But I mean, Thomas Wayne has come back. Thomas Wayne has come back in the comics and done some significant stuff over the years. So I guess what I'm saying there to answer your question is will they bring Wanda back? Probably. I think there's still story to be told there. And so the rule of comics is rule of cool. You know, if you can tell the story and it'd be cool to do so, find a way
Yeah.
to make it happen.
Season 2 of WandaVision will be her comeback. Just wait.
Mm,
Yes.
It'll
Yeah.
totally do that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting down to the end. I know this is a big movie. There's so much to talk about. There's a question in the chat from James Castaneda who says, "How did y'all like the fighting music note scene where we had toccata and fugue and they were causing the notes to like spring to life and like smack each other around? What'd you guys think of that scene?"
Will, you go, because I'm not sure I remember all that
Oh,
stuff.
I was like, yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I want magic is weird in movies, right? Magic is weird in movies. If I said to you that your power is super strength and you can shoot lasers from your eyes, okay, then I need to see powers that are like super strength and shooting lasers from your eyes. But when you have a superhero whose power is he waves his hands and can do whatever he wants, that gives you a lot of leeway to do some cool shit. And here we had a magical fight that we got to see depicted through musical notes that were flying through the air as different instruments in this room got hit and these things were crashing and making new variations on the music. I hadn't seen that done. I liked seeing that. I liked seeing the giant eyeball get like knocked out of the giant
At the beginning?
Yeah, the giant like eyeball monster at the beginning. Like I liked seeing the weird shit happen in this movie because one, that's Sam Raimi, and two, that's what you can get with a Doctor Strange story when told right. You know, could I have seen more of that? Sure. I want some weird ass shit in my movies, and I would love to see kind of what that would look like if they pushed the limits. But for what it was, I had fun with that.
You know, it's funny you brought up that scene at the this movie throws you right into an action sequence at the beginning with this weird monster. I'm not sure. I guess it was created by the Scarlet Witch. I'm not right in
Yes.
order to try to get America. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. I loved it because it was very much it was kaiju movie. You know, here we go. It's a giant monster like stomping down the streets of I don't know what city that is. San Francisco, LA,
New York,
I don't,
I think.
New York. But yeah, I loved that opening scene for my own special reason.
So speaking of Raimi, Ben, you mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to come back to it in spoilers so we could really talk about it. Ben says that the Evil Dead DNA is strong in this movie. And I wanted to know what you guys thought about that. Of course, we had zombie Doctor Strange with these crazy, like, evil spirits that actually reminded me of the voices of the zombies from Evil Dead. There were definitely a lot of horror elements in this, including some jump scares. What did you fellas think about that?
I loved all that. I really, like I said, I loved that Sam Raimi used his horror sensibilities to kind of push the envelope of what we consider like the Marvel cookie cutter, you know, out a little bit on one side, you know, kind of make that cookie cutter a little bit more misshapen. And I like that. What I didn't really like, and people are going to hate me for this, but I really hated the bring back the what's the actor Ash
Bruce Campbell.
The Bruce Campbell stuff. I almost wish if they brought him back, they just gave him something to do. Like it seemed way too fan servicey, and I don't know. It just didn't work for me. While it's cool to see him, I would have liked to see him given something to do in the story.
Sure. The horror stuff was like I mentioned before. I like the horror stuff, especially the Raimi does horror with like a sense of comedic timing to it. Not always, but you know, I think that even in his non-Evil Dead stuff, he's found some ways to infuse whimsy is not the right word, but just like to really like lean into just how over the top some of these like horrific scenes can be, right? And we got to see this here. There were some scenes actually remind me a little bit of Drag Me to Hell, as you know, like those hands are trying to claw at Doctor Strange. You know, we got to see like him embodying a corpse for a bit. We got to see just a lot of like kind of neat stuff there. I'm with you in some ways, Jim. Like the most cuttable scene from this movie is the Bruce Campbell scene, right? But at the same time, I get that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, like Sam Raimi puts Bruce Campbell in his movies, you know? And so if I don't know that this movie had room for another big spot in it. You know, like if they wrote like a bigger character for Bruce Campbell to be in the MCU and as part of this movie, I don't know what that would be. And I think it would already clutter an already cluttered movie. So if you're going to have that in there, I think doing it as the throwaway hot dog guy, I think that's probably your best bet.
Here's what I'll say to that. I was fine with the cameo when it initially happens. What I was not fine with was waiting through all of the credits because I had to pee so bad for that final stinger just to be, oh, my hands stopped hitting me. Like I expected setup for like maybe another film that's coming or, you know, something else big that's brewing. So that's where it kind of, I don't know, twerked me a little bit.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I think it was silly. I don't know if it didn't really work on me, but I'm sure. What's his name again? Please help me.
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell.
I'm sure fans of The Evil Dead, you know, loved every second they could get of Bruce Campbell, and I appreciate that.
And Brad, I'll second that. Like I do. I enjoyed the cameo inside of the movie. I didn't need to revisit the character in the stinger. You know, I was gonna sit through it anyway, so like I didn't have is quite the same reaction, but I had a similar reaction, and just sort of like, okay. Okay.
Wouldn't be the last time we were disappointed with the stinger. What? Yeah. Well, not the first or the last.
Fellas, I know we're winding down. What are any maybe final things you want to talk about before we put a fork in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
Music's good. I really liked the scoring, soundtracking to this. Not just the music scene, but just like music sounded really good in this. Like I think that for a while, like one of the things that I really appreciate about what the MCU is doing overall as a film studio is it feels as though they're at least taking some criticism to heart, right? And they don't necessarily have to. They're making money hand over fist, but early MCU, the two major pieces of criticism I heard from people, or three, I guess, were the villains didn't have enough personality, the music is nondescript, and all of the shots look exactly the same. I think that they've done a great job of overcoming the villain side of things. I think the scores have been stronger as we've gotten over time. And there's some, like, especially sort of like Thor Ragnarok on, we've gotten some sort of like, you know, for a franchise film that needs to have a consistent look, we've had some sort of like weird shifts in cinematography that match sort of the tone of what each of the pieces are. So while still being a cohesive piece, each one has sort of gone off a little bit of different direction. So MCU has done a good job of adjusting that. And all three of those elements are very present here in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. And I guess not a direct takeaway, but like the Xochitl Gomez actor that plays America Chavez in this, I was just looking up her IMDb, and really she's done a bunch of shorts and stuff like that, but I think this is like definitely her first big feature film. She might have done some TV episodes as well, but I mean, it's interesting how that could even happen, right? Like, how was she discovered? How was she considered for the role in this movie? Maybe there's a piece out there I can read on her, but I thought she held her own really well with with Benedict Cumberbatch. I thought the chemistry, I know we overuse that term everywhere, but like I thought they really played well together in the scenes that they had together. So I'm looking forward to maybe more from her.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with her character. Her arc is not resolved. It's really just begun. She zapped her mommies to another universe accidentally when she first figured out that she had powers.
I thought they would resolve that in this movie. And I guess to this movie's credit, they didn't put a bow on that. So that's good.
Well, Doctor Strange even tells her, like, walking away from her, he's like, I hope you find your moms. I'm like, Doctor Strange, why don't you fucking help her out?
She just helped you. Dude.
She just helped you. Like, maybe you could help her, but whatever.
So there is definitely room for... So one of the things that they've been planting the seeds for very heavily is just in terms of like comic book property that we will likely see very heavily in the MCU is something called Young Avengers, which is sort of like closest the equivalent to it would be something like Teen Titans for those who are kind of more familiar with the DC side of things. This is a set of younger Marvel heroes who have analogs to the major Avengers characters. The prominent members of that team include Kate Bishop, who we just saw in Hawkeye, the two Maximoff boys, who we've really recently seen in WandaVision and in this, and is one one of them is one of the most prominent queer characters in comic books right now, because he's like a teenager, actually probably
one of her sons.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're all kind of about the same age. So I think we're, if we see age up. But America Chavez is one of them. You get to see, and another one is a Skrull who we got to see. We know that there's some Skrull stuff coming up after the Captain Marvel, and we've been seeing, the green shapeshifters from Captain Marvel that we've been seeing a little bit of. Jim, we know that there's some stuff coming up. So they've been planting the seeds for some Young Avengers stuff. She would be fantastic. Oh, Kid Loki, the kid version of Loki, who was also in the Loki series. They've been putting a lot of these different characters in so that they have that to pull from if they so desire. So there's a place for that story, and I'd be here for it, by the way. It's one of my favorite comic book runs. It is queer as fuck. I think that there is 0 straight characters on that team.
Wow.
They are all pan... Gay,
I hope they get it out. I hope they get it out soon before it becomes illegal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Will says, Billy and Tommy become Wiccan and Speed. Wiccan is the queer one, is in a relationship with Hulkling. But Speed's queer too. He's in a relationship with Prodigy. So they're all gay on that team, and I'm here for it. A whole comic book of just like a bunch of like young queer superheroes, and with Avengers in the title. I'm here for it.
All right. Awesome.
The future is very queer. And I'm here.
We are all for it, for sure. Well, it has been a phenomenal discussion of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Thank you so much, Jim, Will, for helping me to weave something hopefully entertaining for folks. A big thank you as well to everybody who joined us in the live chat to help us talk about this film. I feel like we could have a Doctor Strange 2 Part 2 discussion and still have a ton of stuff to talk about. But, if people want to continue to talk with us online, Ben, I see you're waving bye. Don't wave bye just yet, unless you don't want to hear our plugs, in which case we'll understand, but we'll be sad. But if you do want to continue talking about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, don't forget to hit us up on our socials at MB Podcast on Twitter or Movie Bears Podcast on Facebook. We're going to go ahead and switch gears here a little bit and put a couple things on your radar that we're excited about, things that we think you might like. Will, what have you got as a plug this week?
I'm going to do a book. I just finished this book called The Midnight Library, which is a book by Matt Haig, and the timing on it was perfect. I did not line it up to finish the day that we were going to be doing the Doctor Strange review. I just happened to finish the audiobook for it on my drive home today. And the reason is it's a multiverse story. Basically, there's this woman, she's in her mid-30s, and she's sort of at this like crossroads of her life where it's sort of like everything feels very shitty. All of the relationships in her life feel frayed or damaged. All of the opportunities that she had feel squandered, and she makes a regretful decision to try to kill herself. And in doing so, she wakes up at this exactly the stroke of midnight in this like infinite library where this librarian gives her a chance to sort of like live out all of the different lives that are based off of like the regrets that she's had. Think multiverse stuff mixed with a little bit of like It's a Wonderful Life. It's an incredibly compelling story. She kind of navigates her own personal multiverse, trying to figure out like how she copes with the things that she's done and hasn't done in her life. It's really good. And it's brisk too, as far as audiobooks go. This one was like 9 hours, which, you know, the next one I think I've got queued is like 48 hours. So it's like, you know, this is the audiobook equivalent of finding like a 72-minute movie.
Nice.
It's called The Midnight Library. It came out fairly recently, like 2-3 years ago, and it's really good. I'd recommend it. And hey, it's on the theme of the multiverse, so
Well,
why not?
well, that sounds compelling. Now that you've done the reading assignment, your homework is to give us the cast of the movie that's going to be done from that property in 3 years. So, yeah, just give us a cast list. Not now, but you know, your
I'm
homework.
gonna guarantee. I haven't looked it up yet, but I'm guaranteeing that it's been optioned, right? Like, there's an Amazon series, like an Amazon original series or something coming out of this, right?
Sure, probably.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Jim, what have you got for your plug this week?
Right. I got something that's not a movie, but it's movie adjacent, and I think it's one that fans, movie lovers like myself, and maybe you guys will like. We've all seen lately on social media the game Wordle. That's become really popular, and you see it in your feed all the time. You know, people enjoying playing that word game. Well, I was turned on by a friend. Thanks, Sam, for turning me on to a movie version of Wordle. It's called Framed. WTF. Now I don't know what WTF means, but I might do some research on that. But it's cool. It's every day you get a new movie to guess based on stills taken from that movie, and you get like 5 guesses or 6 guesses to guess the movie. And it's harder. You know, some of them are harder than others, and they're all pretty well-known movies so far. They're not super obscure movies. I've been playing it for a couple weeks now, and it's fun. I look forward to sometime during the day popping on because you get a new movie every day. So yeah, if you like those kind of guessing games and you're really into movies, and it's a good way to test your movie memory and memory knowledge. So yeah, it's called Framed.wtf. Just go to the website. You don't have to sign up for anything. It's really cool. You just go to the website and it's right there. You just start playing. You don't have to enter any kind of password or username or any of that stuff. It's just right there on the website.
Hey Jim, so Simon, you know, our Simon, he's turned me on to Framed as well as post. Gosh, they're so hard to say. Postertal, which is like movie posters that are like blurred out and they slowly come into focus. And then Moviedle, which plays like an entire movie over the course of like a 1 second, like quicken frames, and you have to see like, oh, did I see something? And then you get like 2 seconds, and you get 3 seconds. There's so many variations of these like out there. It's ridiculous. I was trying to keep up with all of them, and there's a point where I was playing like 10 different like Wordle and Moviedle and Heardle and different things, and then I was just like, Jesus, it takes me an hour every night just to play these games. I've got to slow down.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sweet.
I learned that there's a few more that I should check out.
Well, there you go. If you're looking for something to do, sounds like a pretty good option. That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing, babe. For me this week, this actually came up earlier when we were talking about Anson Mount. My plug for this week is the new Star Trek series that just premiered last week. That, of course, being Star Trek Strange New Worlds, starring Anson Mount as Captain Christopher Pike. We've also got Ethan Peck as Spock, Rebecca Romijn as number 1, Una, and a whole fantastic cast of people. This is a return to form for Star Trek. Will, you actually mentioned earlier that like you had to watch all this Star Trek to kind of understand and jump onto the new shows. This show is perfect in that it's set in the years on the Enterprise before Kirk and McCoy and Scotty and some of those other people came on board. Spock is on the ship. Uhura is on the ship. Those aren't spoilers because Discovery and trailers. But now is the perfect time if you're looking for like a new Star Trek show to jump into. You don't really have to have much previous knowledge, if at all. The Pike character was featured on season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. So if you're like, oh my God, I really love Pike, I want to see more of Pike, you could check out Discovery. But it's definitely not a have to. You just have to understand that this Captain Pike character is in charge of the Enterprise before Kirk ever comes along. And these are the adventures before the adventures of Kirk. I say it's a return to form for Star Trek because the newer Star Trek shows have tried to do something that Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Game of Thrones, I don't know if you'd ever hear those two shows in the same sentence, but I'm putting them together. Both those shows are really good at long arc storytelling. Deep Space Nine and Game of Thrones, told arc-based stories over whole seasons or multiple seasons at a time. The upside is that you get to tell very intricate stories with lots of layers, lots of nuance. You really have your time to slow burn it, and make it super satisfying if done well. The downside, and I'm looking at you, Star Trek Discovery seasons 2 through 4, and Picard seasons 1 and 2, is that you start off strong in the first couple episodes of a season. Then you spin your wheels for 6 or 7 episodes, and then you hurry and finish everything up in an episode or 2 at the end. And that, unfortunately, just does not work very well. It's unfortunate that the other newer Star Trek shows have suffered that. For me, a lot of people really love current Discovery and Picard, and if you do, more power to you. Keep on loving it. But one of the things I love about Strange New Worlds is this is an episodic Star Trek. Everything is self-contained pretty much in a bottle per episode. So for the most part, you can jump into this. And critics have gotten to see the first 5 episodes. Viewers have only gotten to see the first one. But at least within the first, several episodes, it feels like you can just jump in, pick up, and go. You don't have to bring a lot of previous baggage with you. It's great to see stories kind of one and done, wrapped up. It's like a new adventure every week without feeling like, you're stuck in the mud or spinning your wheels. So Star Trek Strange New Worlds is out now. It airs every Thursday on Paramount Plus. If you're looking for a new Star Trek show, definitely consider taking a look.
Absolutely. I think, we've got a ton of Star Trek out right now, and it's a little bit, maybe for non-fans, it's just a little overload, right? So if I was going to point them to one, to kind of get into the newer produced, recently produced shows based on the strength of this pilot episode, I would say it's Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I guess if it's not really Star Trek, but I would consider it adjacent. The Orville season 3 comes out in June too.
It does. It does.
So more Trek flavor, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the Orville's really like a love letter to Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I'm definitely looking forward to that show coming back. The first season, Jim and I did not like. We bailed.
Not very much.
Yeah, but I came back and watched more of it, and the second season they really retool the show to make it less of a Seth MacFarlane comedy and more of like a Star Trek-esque drama with comedic elements. So, Will, I'm really glad you brought up the Orville. It's not an official plug, but now's the time to catch up with the Orville if you haven't seen it before the new season comes out too.
Oh yeah,
exactly what I'm doing.
You have to watch. So you have to watch the 5 Orville movies, seasons 1, 2, and 12. No, it's 2 seasons. This is season 3. There's nothing else.
And all of Family Guy.
All of Family Guy.
Right.
Ted 2. You can skip Ted 1 except for the bonus scene at the end. A Million Ways to Die in the West. Which, if anyone forgot that movie existed, I apologize.
We did.
Oh
we
my
did.
God.
We totally did.
We did remember that.
Maybe D Geek Will can put together a video on his show, which is amazing, by the way. Check it out. Explaining explaining all the things you need to see for the Orville season 3. Anyway, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, really good time. Check it out. Guys, people may want to continue talking about Doctor Strange. There's too much.
Doctor Strange New Worlds.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. Doctor Strange shows up on the Bridge of the Enterprise. People may want to keep talking about Doctor Strange or, other films, whatever. If they want to do that, where can they chat with you online? Jim, go.
As I mentioned, I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at JJP, my initials, out west, at JJP out west. That's where I do movie stuff mostly. I try not to do too much political stuff, but it's hard these days to keep my mouth shut on some of the bullshit that I see. Yeah, and then you can always find me on Facebook. Under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Thank you so much. Will, how about you?
Tons of places. Instagram, I'm at whatever cove. I'm on Facebook. Look for William Lindis and send me a message so I know who you are. I'm on Letterboxd. If you look on Letterboxd and search for William Lindis, I'm there. Give me a follow. I'll follow you back. And I've been playing around on TikTok at the Movie Bear. Come follow the shenanigans.
All right. And folks, you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. I'm the one who likely has Bear Chub Chaser friends in common with you. Send a message first, please, and thank you. You can also find me on Letterboxd and Twitter at iBradPro. Ben is officially waving again. Ben, thanks so much for tuning in. Simon and Will and Hammy, and I'm totally going romper room style. James, everybody, Daniel, who tuned in this week. We love you. We appreciate you. And we love all of you who did not tune in live. Thank you so much for supporting the show and listening. We enjoy being part of your daily commute, walking the dog, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to give us a shout out, say hello. We'd love to chat with you on our social media. So again, that's at MB Podcast on Twitter or Movie Bears Podcast on Facebook. Just search for us. Really easy to find us. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.